Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Own Your Awkward. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and today we have the amazing and the author, Dawn Marcotte. Dawn, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on. I've been looking forward to this because you've got some exciting stuff going on. I don't want to steal your thunder, so why don't you just tell everybody really quickly who you are and what you have going on in the world that's so exciting.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Again, my name is Dawn Marcotte, and I have a business that I started. It is, I'm really excited about it. It's all for new entrepreneurs. That's my focus. I have been in business in one form or another online for 10, 12 years now, mostly as a freelance writer. That's my first love. Even when I was in school, you know, those English papers your teachers would assign, I loved them. I enjoyed writing them. I was that weird kid.
You were the one that was like, yes, we got a writing assignment.
Yeah, exactly. I was. All the other kids hated me. You know, it was great. I loved it. So that's kind of my thing is writing. That's how I express myself best. And that I enjoy the most. But I started back when the internet was new in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And people said, throw up a website and people will fling money at you because it was all new and shiny, right? Nobody knew what they were doing or how they were supposed to do it or anything. So I did that, and I never had anyone fling money at me, unfortunately, but I did have a really big passion around my kids and not allowing them to have more than a half hour a day of screen time. Okay. At that time, it was just TV and computers, right? But that was my thing. I don't want my kids turning their brain to mush. And so I created a website all around that with activities, all kinds of stuff. And there's tons of people, parents out there who've done this. And I was fairly successful with it. I did the daily blogging, whatever. Again, I'm a writer. And then people kept asking me for more information. So finally I wrote a book that I published to help parents with activities and whatever. And it was actually quite successful. So I had a light bulb moment and went, oh, maybe I should do more of that.
Right.
And make
That's
some
where
money,
the money's
right?
coming from. Maybe
that's where the money's coming from, right? Sense. All this other stuff isn't working for me. But so over the course of the last 10 or 12 years, I've had several different businesses, if you want to call them. But basically, I moved from one passion to the next passion, and I write a book about it. So, you know, at first it was my kids. And then as my kids got older, my oldest child happens to be on the autism spectrum, but we wanted her to go to college. So I was very passionate about, well, how do you get kids with special needs into college? How do you pick the right college? All that kind of stuff. So, you know, I wrote a book about that. And then you reach a certain age as a woman and losing weight becomes impossible. Anyway.
Sounds like another book. Yeah.
It was a whole other book, right? So I would just, every time I would come across something that I really had a passion around, that I felt like I could share helpful information, I would write a book. And frequently I had a website, or I would freelance write for different magazines, things like that. So the point is that over this time, I have learned a lot about how to do business online successfully. And there are a lot of myths out there in business, and for online specifically. It's really fast. It's really easy. You should be able to figure this out on your own, things like that. Or do this process and you're going to make lots of money really, really fast because I said so. Things like that. And they create these unrealistic expectations in new entrepreneurs who don't know any better.
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of hype out there. So right now, what I'm working on is a book to kind of pull back the curtain on those. So one of the most common myths is that building a business online is easy. Now, I've been in business long enough that I understand where that came from, because when the internet first started, it is significantly easier to build an online business than it is to build a brick and mortar business.
Sure.
So that's kind of where that started. But now it's morphed into this, no, it should be easy. You should be wildly successful in 90 days and be making $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work like that.
I'm laughing because I've seen so many advertisements like that.
Exactly, right? The advertising just keeps it going and makes it worse and so on. And so new entrepreneurs who don't know any better start in the business and they're 30 days in or 90 days in and they're not making all this money. And all of a sudden it's like, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I figure this out? What's wrong with me? And that's not the way it should work. So I'm doing a book, I'm sharing my experience, but I am also interviewing other entrepreneurs, 20 to 25, maybe more if I can get more, we'll see. But all across the spectrum, from the very beginning, I've been in business less than a year. I have all these frustrations and problems and this is what life is like for me, all the way through to those that have been in business for 10 years or more. So that they can talk about, well, there's this long road and this is how my successes worked and the things that I've done over time. So to really get that experience and that wisdom from a wide range of people, so that no matter who you are in online business or where you are in your journey, hopefully you will find something helpful and inspirational even in this book. So that's what I'm working on right now. I don't have a published date yet for it, but I'm hoping to get it out yet this year. I'm just starting and gathering the interviews and things like that. So it takes a while. I love
that. I was going to say, I'd like to see it in 90 days or less because I'm on a program for a successful business that I'm not sure is going to make happen in 90 days. No. That's awesome. But I am sure that if all of our listeners follow you, they can get updates on all of that.
Of course. Yes. Join my Facebook group.
Okay.
That would be my Facebook group. So I have a Facebook group called Women Coaches and Consultants Growing Our Business. Okay. And I want to be perfectly clear here. I am not a coach. So if you join this Facebook group, I'm not going to be selling you coaching things.
Gotcha.
The whole idea is to get entrepreneurs that can give me insight into what I need to put in the book, obviously, because I know stuff from my point of view, but I also want to share from other people's point of view. But I have all this experience, this life experience that I love to share with people.
Right.
That's one of my core values, is helping people. I'm a good helper. And so, and I love teaching. So I felt like a Facebook group was the best way to do all of that in one place, as opposed to a website. I mean, I also have a website, but it's just a good place to do all that.
Yeah, the great thing with the groups is there's a conversation going on, and in the group that I'm in, and I imagine in your group, you're going to learn so much along the way. The people in the group can pick up tips and tricks and ideas before the book even comes out that will be reinforced.
Exactly, right? And I have people, again, all different spectrum, all along the spectrum in my group. So somebody who's brand new and says, ask a question in the group, how do I do market research? They may get 8 or 10 or 20, maybe, if they're lucky. Right. People who have experience, who can say, well, I do it this way. Because that's really one of the things I think it is so important to understand about online business. I'm not saying these programs that people are selling for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days don't work, but you need to figure out what works for you. Does that particular program hit your skills? Does it support you in the things that you know how to do or are comfortable in doing? And if not, may not work so well for you.
Yeah.
And that's, you got to try stuff.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to get so many different perspectives, because there's no all-in-one answer that you can take and just Xerox or photocopy. I don't know, do people even say Xerox anymore? You're going to photocopy something and move it over, duplicate it, because that's just, but there might be something there that's valuable, right? You might be able to say, okay, this piece works for me. Now, if I can find something to replace the other pieces that didn't come over from somewhere else, I can piece my own thing together. So
exactly. I wrote a book just last year and published it in November about how to build a Facebook group and how to use it to get clients. And what I did to write that book is I took 3 or 4 different classes from different people, and I took bits and pieces from each class. No one of those classes provided me with the perfect blueprint for me, but they each had pieces. And I put all of that into my book so that people that read it can go, oh, that Instagram train thing makes me feel really spammy. I'm not comfortable doing that. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to go over here and do this other process to get people into my group that feels more comfortable for me,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. So it's important to just try and tweak and then review what the results are. I don't think people talk about that enough, is that you can't just do something for a week and then when it doesn't work, move on to something else. You got to do it for 30 days and then look and see what worked and what didn't, and then make changes, because it takes time to build momentum. No matter what people tell you, it takes time.
Especially with the algorithms. A lot of times it's, people aren't even seeing it to react. So you don't even know if they didn't see it, then you can't judge yourself against how well you put a post together or something, because if they just didn't have the option to react to it. So,
and that's the thing that I think a lot of people struggle with that have businesses that aren't professional marketers. They don't understand that even though they're saying the same basic thing over and over, and to the point that we're bored saying it, we're tired of saying it. But every time you post that message, 10 different people are going to see it. It's not the same person seeing you on Instagram and on Facebook and on LinkedIn or whatever. Or the same person might read a post that's a long text post and not listen to your video, where someone else is not going to read that text post, but they'll listen to your video. So presenting the same information in multiple ways also reaches a larger audience. But again, it feels so repetitive to the person presenting it.
Yeah, especially as individual people running a business, when we're the one putting it out there individually to each person. So we are making that action, as opposed to a marketing team at a company launching a product where they say, well, here goes this mail merge, here goes this billboard here, because people traditionally don't buy a product. I'm sure you've heard facts like this, but it's usually not until they've been exposed to it around 7 times. And that's why you get the flyer in the mail, the Facebook ad, the stand at the grocery store with the samples. It's like you have to have all those touches. And we have to do that with our businesses, where we can figure out what are the 7 or 8 different ways we can put our product in front of somebody. So
Exactly.
Well, I could talk about this kind of stuff forever, because this is what I do. I love doing. I love helping businesses grow, and I'm always looking for tips and tricks for mine. But I have to ask you, Dawn. It's time. What is your awkward thing that you've had to own to get to where you are today?
Wow, there are so many to choose from. Let me tell you. I think the most awkward thing for me is, at heart, I'm an introvert.
Okay.
I have a really hard time peopling. So, I was in the corporate world for almost 30 years in jobs that required me to people a lot. It was some form of executive assistant or administrative assistant. So my job was to manage people and how they interacted with my executives and things like that. And I like people. I enjoy people in small groups and small doses.
Sure.
But it's when I started my businesses online, especially more recently when I've transitioned from a part-time side gig to a full-time, it's just weird to me, because the thing is Facebook Lives. That was a new thing in 2020 or 2019, whenever it came out. And everybody was all about, you got to do Facebook Lives. You got to do Facebook Lives. In front of people?
Right. You're like, I am writer. I put my words together behind the scenes.
Exactly. I will read to you what I have written. No, that's not going to work either. So the first couple of times I did a Facebook Live was so uncomfortable and so awkward. And it was just, bleh. It was just awful. Right. But I kept at it. I kept practicing. And I have to say, I'm very happy that my group was very, very small at that time. So I didn't embarrass myself in front of too many people. But I kept going and I kept trying, and I got better and better and better at it. And that was the thing, is that I'm still an introvert. I understand that, like on a day like today, when I am on a podcast, and even though you're one person, I'm still really nervous because I know other people are going to listen to it, but that's okay. But I know that tomorrow there will be no peopling. There will be working on my book, and there will be sitting in my little home office, and that's it, because I will have expended all of my I would be peopled out for a while. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Well, first of all,
So,
the nerves don't show. You feel like a natural. So
oh,
you've
well,
done
thank you.
well with
Thank
your
you.
from your first Facebook Live, which I didn't see, but just from what you're saying. So
No, please don't go back and look at it. Please. Please
okay,
don't go
I won't go
back.
I won't go stalk you in that way.
I
But
appreciate that. Yeah.
so how did that feel when you first put that out there and you knew that you needed to do it?
You know, and so I've actually taken a Dale Carnegie class in public speaking, and I don't know if
Okay.
your listeners will know who that is, but it's a very famous company and person who's very, very good at teaching you how to
Mhm.
speak publicly. So that helped a little bit, just have a little bit of that background that, okay, here's some specific ways to write your speech and practicing and all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure a lot of people share the same, I don't want to speak publicly.
Mhm.
The thing about doing, particularly a Facebook Live, if you've never done it before, is you're talking to your camera. You're not sitting in a room full of people. And after that thought kind of clicked for me, then I was like, oh, I don't think about the people that are out there. Just think about, I'm talking to my computer. I'm
Sure.
teaching a class. So just that little tweak to the mindset
Mhm.
really helped me a lot to feel more comfortable in doing it. Now, I don't have a problem doing Facebook Lives, but if anybody ever actually asked me to, I don't know, speak publicly in front of real warm breathing people, I would probably freak out again because there's real people in the room and
There's
they're
a difference.
looking at me, and yeah,
Right.
that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I've heard that, 2020 became kind of the introvert's paradise in a lot of ways. Like, yes,
It really has. I
finally the
don't,
world I've been waiting for.
exactly, right? I can sit and read my book and nobody thinks I'm strange for not wanting
Mhm.
to go out. Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
exactly. Now, I love that you mentioned your plan for tomorrow, because I think that's
Yes.
something that we need to have in mind is if you know you're facing something that takes you out of your comfort zone, still face it, but plan for a way to recover. Was that something that you started doing right away, or did you find that out on accident? How did you get to that?
I actually already knew that because I am married to an extrovert who
Okay.
has a huge family. And
Oh,
every year during the holidays, we go to his, aunt's house, and there's 50 or 60 people running around,
yeah,
all
wow.
talking to me. Yes.
Peopling happening.
I mean,
Whoa.
peopling, right? And they're all wonderful people, and I love them all. But we're there for like 6, 8 hours. I mean, it's a
Sure.
full day,
Yeah.
right? So the next day, no, you don't talk. No, leave me alone. So
Mhm.
I learned that after the first couple of years of, why am I so exhausted today? Oh, that's
Mhm.
right. I had to spend yesterday being social with all these people, right? So I learned it from other areas of my life that I knew I would need time to recover from that experience. And it's gotten, better over the years. I have become a
Mhm.
little bit more extroverted, a little bit more comfortable with that. And I think that's true when we try anything new. The first couple of times are terrifying because you don't know what you're doing. But after
Yeah.
you've done it a couple of times, you kind of figure out what works for you. And there's different things that you can do, especially for public speaking. The one thing I learned that's kind of funny, that I have used every single time I speak, it's called the Wonder Woman pose. And
Mm.
what it is for 2 minutes before you speak, you stand and you put your hands on your hip, like how that Wonder Woman,
Yeah.
for all of us
Yeah.
that know Wonder Woman, how she stands when she's being all, authoritative and wonderful and whatever. Stand
Yes.
like that for 2 minutes. And what it does is it changes how you breathe and it just relaxes everything. And I thought it was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard of. I can't believe you're telling me to do this. Why am I going to try this? And I tried it and I was absolutely amazed. It really worked and it
Yeah.
relaxed everything. So just, learning things like that and preparing in that way, like what can I do to relax? How can I manage my stress? How can I figure out a better way to do this was really important.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember when I started in sales, and the very first sales meeting that I went to for the company I was working for was our national sales meeting. They had Jack Carew there speaking, and he's talking
Oh,
about
wow.
being in sales. This was awesome. And he's like, it's the most noble profession, because you're helping people. And it really changed my perspective on what we were doing, because you're helping someone find a solution when you're doing sales the right way.
Right.
But he was talking about when he goes to a sales call, how he has like 2 or 3 songs that he plays in the car and he's singing along the way. He's just like, I'm
Okay.
singing, and then it's like glory, glory, hallelujah, and whatever else the songs were. But
Right.
and it was comical and it was funny, but I took that with me, and I started, when I'm going into something, whether it's a meeting or just to kickstart my day, I started making sure that I was playing music that was going to set the tone for how I wanted to enter a situation.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me of that
Perfect.
with that Wonder Woman pose, because you do need to do things that change the physiological feeling in your body and in your mental
Yes.
state.
Yeah, oh, exactly. That's one of the things that I talk about in my group, and I've learned over the years. Like I have a special needs child, and that's one of the things we learned in order to break her out of some of her mental difficulties is to change her physiology, the biofeedback, things like that.
Okay.
And it's amazing the difference it makes. So taking that knowledge into my world and into the business world, very true. When you feel that overwhelm and that stress feeling, your body doesn't know the difference between I'm stressed because there's a tiger over there about to jump on me and eat me, or
Right.
I'm stressed because I'm going to go do a Facebook Live. Physiologically, there's no difference. Your
Right.
body doesn't know. But so you can do things mentally to prepare and to handle that stress. So it's so important to do that. Yes.
Yeah. And so much, you've talked about a lot of different things about changing your mindset, but so much of our success is just related to how we're approaching the situation and how we think about it. So,
It is.
yeah.
It
Now,
is.
one thing that you mentioned earlier is you said that I love the trend now to make nouns verbs. By the way, the
Yeah.
peopling
People,
is
yes.
too much, but that you do love people, and I think that that's something I just want to touch on, that because there's this common misconception that introverts just don't like people. And that's not true at all. I have so many friends
No.
that are introverts. I think that there is a scale of introvertedness and extrovertedness that we're all on, that I think that's important. So have you had people who feel like, because you don't want to be that extroverted person all the time, that it is tied to not liking people?
Yeah, I have run into that now and again, but yeah, I haven't really had too much of a problem with it. I think as an introvert, I'm a good listener.
Okay. Yeah.
So, if when you can get people to start talking about themselves, you don't really have to do a whole lot more than smile and nod
Right.
and
You don't
right?
have to
Keep
put the
agreeing.
output. You can do the
You
intake.
don't have to put the output. So there are ways around it. And over the years, I've done a lot of different personality testing and things like that, just because of different situations of things going on. And so I know for me personally, I'm right on that borderline between I and E. I enjoy people, but it takes a lot of energy for me
Okay.
to interact over long periods of time. And that's the thing about being an introvert. It's where you get your energy from. I get my
Right.
energy from quiet individual activities. Whereas if you're my father, you get your energy from other people. And
Hmm.
he's been a salesman his whole life and absolutely fabulous at it. He can get information out of people in a matter of minutes that I would never, just because he's so outgoing and so interested in them and things like that. So, but he gets his energy from that interaction with other people. And that's the difference between introvert and extrovert. It's not that I don't like people. I just
Right.
have to put more effort into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it is all about where you feel energized. Do you feel energized in a big group, or do you need the time to recharge separate from that group?
Right. Right. Yep.
So you have a book you're working on, you have the Facebook
Yes.
group, and I love that, um, you know, being a writer and then moving into the Facebook and the online world, it kind of does force you to be out in front of people in a lot of different ways.
It
And
does.
and so that's to me, that's the essence of owning your awkward, which is kind of what this show is all about. It's that you've taken that thing where you're introverted and then you've learned how to do it. What would you say was the most difficult part of doing that? I know that you mentioned the Facebook Lives. You talked about moving from reading to being in front of people right away. Was there one piece that really wasn't the
You know,
easiest?
the most difficult thing for me, I think, because I don't feel necessarily comfortable being extroverted, I would listen to what other people said about how it should be done
Mm.
and do it that way rather than staying authentic to who I am. And that just made it feel kind of spammy, not very
Mhm.
authentic, and made it harder because I was pretending to be something I wasn't, or trying to pretend to be something I wasn't for a while. And then I realized, no, that's not going to work. I can't keep doing this. I have to be me. I have to be authentic to my values and my priorities and who I am. And once I did that and just started sharing my story, and I just started this business in 6 months ago or 3 months ago or whatever it was at the time I was speaking, and just be honest instead of trying to pretend and portray myself as this hugely successful person, and you should listen to me
Mhm.
because I'm hugely successful. Because that's what
Right.
everybody does, right? We talked about
Yeah.
it a little bit, all that marketing, buy my thing, success in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And I just was not comfortable doing that. And once I finally figured out that's not going to work for me, I need to
Yeah.
do it my way, then it became so much easier for me, even though it's still being extroverted, but it's still being me. And
Mhm.
I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm old enough. I've been around the block a couple of times. I'm happy with who I am. And I'm comfortable expressing that to people. And once I got to that point, that made it so much easier, so much better, and more effective too,
Mhm.
because people can spot a fake a mile away. They know
Yeah.
when you're just going through the motions or saying what you're supposed to say because somebody told you to say it. If
Mhm.
you're not authentic, they're not going to listen to you.
Yeah, because as soon as you ask, like, we've all had that telemarketer kind of call us. And it's like as soon as you ask one question off the script, they're just stumped, and
Yeah,
that's
exactly,
when you're
right?
faking it too much. That's people can sense that because you can't veer anywhere from what you were told to do. And I think you
Yep,
really hit it on the head, and this really hit home in my mind when you said when you're trying to do it the way someone told you to, it just makes it so much harder because it, and then it's not easy and it's not fun, and then it becomes even more work. And when it's hard, it's just you're not going to have as good of a product, you're not going to connect well, and you're going to give up a lot sooner.
exactly. You're not going to have the passion around it that you need to have to keep going through those tough days.
Hmm. And
And
I
we all have
definitely,
them.
yeah, when I started, I definitely can relate. I mean, my people that have been with me this whole time, they could go back and watch my early videos and things I was trying to do. And I was doing some of that where it's like, okay, I watched this. This is what they said to do. I've got this formula in place. Here's my plan. Here's my bonus. Here's this. And it didn't feel good and I didn't like it. And I had to move away from that too because it wasn't who I was, but I felt like that's what I needed to do to get to success.
Right,
And
right.
it is, you're absolutely right. It's so much easier, it's so much more fun, and it's so much more authentic to just take what you can from those things that you learn and say, okay, maybe I need to add in a little bit of this or that, or strive for one thing or another. However, this is the essence of me. This is how I need to present myself, and this is what I'm going to talk about.
Exactly. And when you do something the very first time, it's fine to take a template from someone because
Hmm.
you've never done it before. Okay, try
Sure.
it. But
Yeah.
figure out, how does it feel? What works for you? What does your audience respond to? And then tweak it from there. You
Yeah.
don't have to stay tied to exactly what that other person is doing. You can take elements, like you said, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but make sure you put your personality into it too, and
Hmm.
it will feel so much more authentic and
Oh, yeah.
natural.
Yeah. Because a lot of times you're right. There is value in having something to start with because some people can take a blank canvas and just start drawing, and all of a sudden there's a Mona Lisa on there.
Right?
And other people need the paint by numbers, or maybe at least the sip and paint class where you have a blank canvas, but someone's telling you what to put where. You need at
Yes.
least one of those elements. So,
Right, exactly. Yeah, something to start with, but test it, tweak it, and keep going until
mhm,
you get something that works for you. And of course, we're already or always learning, hopefully, as we go along. You
right,
can't, especially in social media, you can't just say, okay, this process works for me. This is what I'm going to do for the next 10 years, because things
right.
change constantly. You have to stay up to date with what's
Hmm.
going on.
Yeah, and as soon as you get, you know, I remember it's like, okay, I got LinkedIn down and there's like, okay, wait, now there's Facebook. And then it's like, okay, well, now I've got to do Instagram and Twitter. And now there's, Clubhouse and,
Yeah,
TikTok. Is like, as soon as you get one down, there's another platform you've got to learn. So you have to be okay with being flexible and knowing also that it's okay that it's not perfect from the beginning, that it's going to continue to grow and change and develop, because people who are following you like to see that journey as well.
exactly. I have a business coach and she's always telling me done is better than perfect. If you spend all your time trying to make your website perfect before you launch it, you'll never launch it. You've
Yeah.
got to just take action, even though it may not be perfect, but the more consistent you are about just taking action, the faster you're going to grow your business, the further you're going to get.
I remember the first time I was going to post a YouTube video. It wasn't even live. It was just a video that I was editing, and I kept recording and I kept recording. And I remember telling myself, at some point you have to hit post. Like, it's never going to be, at some point it has to just be okay enough, because I'd be like, oh, I stumbled on this word. I did this, I did that. And here I am telling people to own their awkward. And I was like, but I don't want to own my own awkward. Like, I want mine to be perfect.
I think my all-time favorite awkward moment was on a podcast, very much like this one. And I have a cat in the house who decided he needed to be in my lap during the podcast. So you see this little tail right over here and maybe a couple of ears, right? And then right at the end, he jumps down and this cloud of cat hair just explodes on screen. And I'm like,
perfect ending.
It's live. There's nothing we can do. Just keep going. Let's go, right?
You're like, pet lovers, just join in, right?
Right? I was like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to keep talking. Maybe nobody noticed.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. The best thing you can do is just go. Just go with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're coming up to the end here. So what's some good advice you'd leave people with for a tip on how they can own their awkward?
Well, I think if you just embrace the idea that everyone has awkward moments. We are not all good at everything. And accept that that's part of who you are. If it's something that you really want to get better at, take small steps towards that. Public speaking, take some classes, join Toastmasters. That's a great way to learn how to public speak.
Toastmasters. It's a great.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So there are things that you could do if you feel awkward in something, but you really want to do it. Just take steps towards getting better at it, and eventually you will get there.
I love that, because you're both giving yourself permission to be okay, because everybody does have that space, but also taking some ownership. If there are areas that you do decidedly want to make a change in, then you can take some action, and that's all right.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Well, that is beautiful. And also follow Dawn, join her group on Facebook. Can you say the group one more time? And we'll put a link in the comments as well.
Okay. It's Women Coaches and Consultants Growing Our Business.
Perfect. So join the group, keep up on the tips, and watch for the book. And if you're facing any of the other changes that she has mentioned, she's got all those other books already written. You don't have to wait for
already written. Yep.
So visit the website and check all that out. So
wonderful.
Dawn,
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes, this has been great. It's been fun. Thank you so much for having me on as a guest.
Thank you for joining us and for being willing to open up and share your peopling and enjoy your day of downtime tomorrow. I really appreciate it.
Yes, it'll be great. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And everybody else, stay tuned. Be sure to follow up, support Dawn Marcotte. And of course, as always, own your awkward. Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.